Transition. Wah. Okay, and then we're streaming. Hey!
Hey.
Much like a god of chaos ripping the various dying timelines into a perfect, beautiful cacophony, a big thing. We have brought this live stream together. Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. This live stream is brought to us by Kroger Purified Drinking Water. They did not pay for this, but I am drinking it.
Also, another shout out to my periodic table of cats.
Hey. Oh, where's it? There it is. Very good. Very good. The crew of cats right there. Oh, my goodness gracious. We have got a big one to talk about. As soon as my throat clears and I can speak properly, then I think we'll be ready to go off to the races. But so first, before we get started, Lorraine, how you doing this morning?
I am doing great. A little sad, but other than that, doing good. How are you?
I mean, sad because don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
I am not to that second part of that yet. I'm just sad.
I am thrilled. I think we've got a one, like, anyway, we'll get into it. I will say this before we get started. This is just for the live stream. This is not for the podcast, although we'll put it something similar in the podcast. But as you know, this will be the last stream for the Loki TV Talk podcast. Lorraine and I are members of the crew of Loki. We are gearing up for Chewbacca's 2024. If you have any interest to learn more about that, be sure to let us know. You can follow us on Instagram, Crew of Loki. That's KREWE of Loki. On Instagram, you'll be able to see some of our antics. We need to do some Throwback Thursdays, Lorraine, where we post some of the videos from last year. I think that might need to happen between now and Chewbacca. I think that'll be fun. And also, honestly, as we've been kind of planning our throws and also our costumes, Lorraine, I feel like Andrew, your husband, I know he was going to go as TVA Loki, but after seeing like the end of this episode, we need to get him the horns. Like he's got to go full on God mode. I'm sorry, but like people would think that we have actual Tom Hiddleston. Like if he is rocking that exact costume.
Yeah, they really might.
They would think like people would lose their minds. Yeah, see, y'all don't realize this. There's a reason why Lorraine is so obsessed with Taylor Swift. She feels like she is the variant Taylor Swift that ended up with Tom Hiddleston because her husband looks a lot like Tom Hiddleston. Specifically Loki Tom Hiddleston, but still.
I mean, he really looked like TVA Loki when he grew his hair out that one Halloween. So people had to do a double take, honestly. So
this is what I'm saying.
I'll see if I can try to convince him. He's gonna be listening to this, like, oh, okay, sounds like I don't have a choice, but he has a choice. So
I might even give up my all father role in the crew and make him like the honorary all father if he rocks the horns. He's got to go full God mode. If he does that, that would be amazing.
We'll see what we can do.
All right. Well, hopefully my voice doesn't give out, and we've got with everything that we've got going on. So, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, we did hit record. Let me just double check. Yes, we did. Okay, here we go. Broadcasting glorious purpose across the interdimensional airwaves. This is Bo, aka Loki variant HTJM84.
And Lorraine, aka Loki variant RVJM91.
And you are tuned into the most mischievous show in the multiverse, or should I say Lokiverse, where we are talking all things Loki. Today we are down to the final episode. That's right, season 2 has come to a close with the most epic season finale of all Disney Plus shows, and possibly one of the greatest pieces of storytelling in the entire MCU canon to date. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I'm going to put it up on that pedestal because we got something fantastic in this series, in this finale. You love it. You love it to see when these shows and these stories stick the landing. And my, oh my, have they stuck the landing in such a major way. We're going to talk about all of that. But thank y'all so much for joining us. Lorraine, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm still feeling sad, but maybe by the end of this episode, I will just be so thrilled.
You need to be glad. Don't be sad. Be glad. I get it. Like there is kind of a bittersweetness to whenever anything comes to a close. But much like any good Ragnarok, it's not just about the ending. It's about the rebirth and the beginning of something new.
Yes, reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnation, baby. All right. We're going to get into all of it, starting, of course, with the episode title and more. Are you ready, Lorraine?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. Let's get into the rundown. Episode 6 of Season 2, Glorious Purpose. Directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, and story by Eric Martin. Lorraine, what happened this episode?
Loki time slips to the moment before the temporal loom's destruction. Despite his attempts, the loom always fails as it cannot accommodate the infinite branches. Loki slips to the moment before Sylvie kills He Who Remains, who tells Loki that the loom is a failsafe. Overloading it protects the sacred timeline by deleting the branches along with the TVA. He Who Remains suggests Loki kills Sylvie to save the loom, which Loki rejects. After speaking with Mobius and Sylvie at different moments in time, Loki returns to assume Timely's role and destroys the loom. Loki magically revives the dying timelines and rearranges them into a tree-like structure, committing himself to oversee the branches in solitude at the end of time. The TVA now tracks variants of He Who Remains, with Mobius reporting one of them has been stopped at Earth's 616's adjacent realm. The TVA also prunes Renslayer in 1863, preventing Timely from receiving the handbook. Ouroboros reactivates a now friendly Miss Minutes and writes a second edition of the TVA guidebook that credits Timely as a co-author. B-15 becomes one of the TVA's leaders. Mobius retires from the TVA. He and Sylvie observe the sacred timeline counterpart.
Dun, dun,
his
dun.
sacred timeline counterpart.
Okay. Well, yeah. All right. Read that last line one more time.
He and Sylvie observe his sacred timeline counterpart.
Dun, dun, dun. Done? I don't know. This is interesting because it says Moby retires from the TVA, and it certainly seemed like that's what he was going to do, but I'm kind of curious as to whether or not that's actually what he's going to do for a number of reasons, not the least of which is like, you know, he's got nowhere to go. You know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling he'll be back.
We'll see. I mean, his person is going to die on the timeline. So then...
That's true. I mean, he could pop up and say, like, you know, hey, I'm your long lost twin. Isn't that wild? Like, wow. You know,
that's true. And they could do that. Really sell jet skis together.
He does have 2 jet skis
dream. Exactly.
in the garage.
He'll be like, hey, I know your wife's gone. You got some extra space in the house. Let's go out on the lake.
Wow, this is crazy. Yeah, no, that'd be that. Maybe that's what, you know. Everybody was kind of speculating the symbolism of the 2 jet skis, and like it's like, oh, you know, I think even you said like Loki and Mobius are gonna ride off on those 2 jet skis together. Maybe it was Mobius and Mobius that were gonna ride off on those 2 jet skis together.
I like that.
There is kind of like an overall message of like loving yourself and kind of coming to terms with who you are in all of this, right? So there, that could be that could have been the symbolism of the jet skis all along.
Maybe his 2 boys are twins, so he can be like, oh yeah, twins running the family. You didn't know? I
think he's coming back. You know, this is great that we're starting off with Mobius. Like, let's definitely do that because, of course, Mobius at the end of this, there is kind of that sense of you can't go home, right? Because in the end, everything has been building up to this question of like, don't you want to know who you were on the sacred timeline? And then Loki pulling him out of that, like, I can return you to this exact moment. Your boys are going to be fine. But then ultimately, when it's all said and done, he can't go back home. Like, you know, he's given up his life and now knows why he's given up his life, not just to protect his boys, but so that he himself, or at least a variant of himself, can be there to support his children along the sacred timeline. And it's tragic and beautiful, and kind of it's that painfully beautiful nature of the moment as he gets to see like, oh, this is why it was worth it. I'm protecting this, but I can also never have this, right? Like this pain. It reminded me a little bit of Severance. Have you seen Severance?
Oh yeah, big Severance fan.
So it reminded me of the scene from Severance where the dude goes down into like the HR room and the lady is telling him about like his, oh gosh, what are they called? The upper people, or what is it? Innie. That's right. Oh, no, you're outie, right? Because you're the innie.
Yeah, you're outie.
That's right. So she's telling him about the outie and saying like, your outie loves this. your outie is liked by all. Like all of these different things to try to reaffirm the itty of like, hey, what you're doing is worth it because of that. There was a very Severance vibe that I got from that whole experience.
Interesting. It's like his innie is him at the TVA, and his outie is the one that gets to be with his boys selling jet skis.
Exactly. I mean, the clear
And he
difference
kept
here.
it severed. He kept it severed because he was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Because some people want to know, some people don't. And now he knows.
Now he knows.
And she just wants to be there to pass the time.
Yeah. Yep. So sad. Mobius, of course, does play a pretty significant role in this as Loki's kind of going along his way and kind of giving reconciling with the notion of like, why do good things happen or why do bad things happen to good people? And like, how do you live with yourself when you have to make the tough calls of, destroying something in order to preserve something better? That's really kind of the big question throughout all of this. I mean, there's a lot of big questions throughout all of this, but as Loki's kind of going on that journey to step from like little g godhood to big G godhood, like he's trying to wrestle with the right way to do it. And Mobius has been, to some extent, aside from the fact that they've been kind of this, this bromance between the two, kind of a brotherhood between the two, there's also kind of a like they both exist in these elements of morally gray. And Mobius has been kind of that lighter, like morally gray to Loki's darker morally gray. And so we'd never see somebody like Loki, a villain, mind you, Loki like leaning on a purely righteous individual to figure out what he should do. It would never work for him. He could never get on board with that. But he's not fully evil either. And so he's not necessarily like that, when presented with the evil option, that's not going to work for him as well. So he has to operate in these shades of gray, and who better to help guide him in that way than Mobius, along with, the rest of the characters as well.
Indeed.
So Mobius, go ahead.
Why he decided to go speak to Mobius about this particular moral conundrum.
Yes. And it's nice they go to that specific moment in time, right? So let's, I feel like we jumped to Mobius, but we really should be talking about Loki because this entire episode was very much the through line is Loki on that journey. We see, at the beginning, we've got a Groundhog Day situation going on where he's reliving moments over and over again. Loved that he ran right up to Obi, grabbed him, and he's like, okay. Like I was actually wondering, he's going to let all of this play out. It's just happening again. Why is this happening again? And you see, it's because he needs somebody to tell him what he needs to do. It's like, okay, everything's about to die. This is all terrible. Obi, what can we have done differently?
It's like, this is what I need to know for my next steps.
Right. And, with Obi being kind of the super omega genius that he is, he gets the notes, he keeps going back, but Obi does hit him with this, I don't know, very Obi-esque of communicating I don't know, but then giving you all of the information that shows that he does know. He constantly goes back and forth in that way. But he says, we took too long. And I love this because throughout this entire season, it has felt like these guys have been dragging their feet with this whole problem. You know what I mean? I remember very early on in the season, I kind of felt like, oh, I feel like y'all could lickety split this much quicker if you weren't eating pie and standing around and talking about it. If you were just doing it. And so to see Loki experience the failure and then go back and try to rush through the season was actually very cathartic.
It's you don't need a second coat of paint on that model. It's perfect.
Right. And we see this happen over and over again. Obviously, throughout this Groundhog Day scenario, He Who Remains and Victor Timely both get torn apart and eradicated several times over. Now, there's two elements of this. One is, there's a lot of kind of growing commentary of the concept of Kang being this massive threat, and yet we've seen him die so many times now. So does he still represent that extreme threat? I would argue yes. But then there's the other cathartic nature of this, which is you got to wonder if Disney, after all the frustration with the Jonathan Majors controversy, if it's just kill him again, just kill him again, just rip, again. How many times can we eradicate him from the timeline? Can we do it again? Can we? Let's do another take. Let's do another take.
I will say, when they finally got it to work, and the the I can't remember the terminology, but the timelines were stabilizing and everything.
The time
I
loom,
was like
yeah.
I was like, oh, Victor Timely was just exposed to so much radiation that he's about to become Kang right here because he's like got all this superpower now, and that didn't happen.
No, no. Although by the end of this, obviously, Timely is gone. And there's still a lot that we don't fully know about who this kid is, like who the primordial Kang is, right? Like we're introduced to this young boy in Chicago. He gets a book. That book causes him to become the variant Victor Timely, right? By the end of this episode, he no longer gets the book. So Victor Timely has been eradicated from the timeline. He hasn't been like pruned in the fullest sense, but he no longer exists, right?
So that's very confusing to me because without Timely getting the book and everything, they wouldn't have ended up in the situation where Loki ended up, walking out and taking over at the end and saving everybody. And Victor Timely was there when Loki went out there. So what happened? Like, if they get rid of Victor Timely, then how
No,
does it all
right.
happen?
So Timely, I think it depends on how they want to deal with this, right? Timely could still very much exist in the TVA. He could actually go on to be a judge in the TVA or something of that nature. But given their, propensity for wanting to handle the Kang of it all, my guess is, I don't know, they might end up pruning him. You know what I mean? Like he still had those Kang tendencies, if you recall. He was like betraying Renslayer. He doesn't want to share power. He's not that trustworthy to keep around a TVA, especially when an entire organization, entire previously fascist organization that exists for the sole purpose of the eradication of everybody that is literally you. He might not want to stick around. He might try to do something later on. I'm just, whether or not they tell us what ends up happening to that Timely, the variant Timely, who knows? But suffice to say, on the sacred timeline, they pruned Renslayer so that she no longer is able to give the book, and the book doesn't go to the kid, which means that this variant never, is going to, he's like that timeline that he creates no longer exists. Which means that kid is still there to go on to become multiple variants of Kang. And we don't know what that looks like. At one point during this episode, when Mobius was talking about, the story of Renslayer and the kid, and then he saw the kid and he couldn't do it, and then Renslayer did it. The first time I saw that, and I texted you, I texted some other people, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I thought I'd figured something out that I was very wrong about, was that I thought that maybe that kid was actually Ramatut. Like, because, so he mentioned the Black Sea. I'm not very good with geography. I thought I got the Black Sea and the Red Sea mixed up, and I thought, oh, okay, Red Sea's right there on the coast of Egypt. This is Ramatut. She sees Ramatut's pyramid in the void at the end of time. It's like, okay, it's all coming together. This is kind of like a little bit of an Easter egg for something that's to come. But totally wrong on that. Totally wrong on that. Don't know who that kid is, but the kid was pruned, and the kid was pruned by Renslayer. Renslayer didn't save the kid. It was the other way around. So, yeah. That being said, I mean, at the same time, if it was a potential Kang variant,
then they're both at the void at the end of time together.
It's a 19. Yes, good point. Good point, Lorraine. Yes, thank you for
purple light at the end.
Technically speaking, it is a 19-day walk from Cairo to the Black Sea.
19 days.
I mean, it's not ideal, but it's doable is all I'm trying to point out. Like, maybe the kid walked with his brother for a long time for whatever reason to get to the Black Sea. Maybe. I don't know. It's probably not Ramatut, but it'd be cool if it was.
Do we know the year it was? They could have flown, driven, taken a train.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. But no, I don't think there were many ancient Egyptian pharaohs that were taking trains or planes.
But what if he had already created an invention that got him there faster?
Ooh, okay.
He was an inventor, probably.
Okay, that could be. That could be. There's also, I don't know. We'll have to end up seeing where it all plays out. if it plays out. Obviously, Renslayer, we don't get much of her in this episode except for the tail end. We do get the confirmation that a lot of us were, predicting that she would go to the void and she would see Eliath, and perhaps everything would be fine, given the fact that she may, the creature might already know her. Whether or not she remembers the creature, we'll find out. But she seemed a little shocked, but then a little excited. It was kind of what I gathered from her seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she doesn't really know what happens to you when you're pruned. So she wakes up and is like, yes, I'm still alive.
Wanted to know what it was like on the other side.
It's like, where am I? What is this glowing light? And we're all thinking, what is this glowing purple light?
Glowing red light, though, right?
I think it was purple. I don't know. I'm not the best with colors.
I thought it was red light. Isn't that Eliath? That's the beast. That's the creature.
I thought it was purple light, suggesting that it was maybe a Kang variant.
No, that's a lie. I'm probably mispronounced. Is it Eliath or Elias or?
It's Elias.
Okay, yeah, that's. I guarantee that's what that is.
I don't know.
It's a giant glowy Kang variant.
He could be like, I've been waiting for you. You pruned me. You sent me here. And then they'll have an epic battle.
Yeah. I don't think that's right. Getting back to Loki though, he the way in which he has relived everything so many times is so brilliantly done, because that's a storytelling device that can get old very quickly when you have to see the same thing over and over and over again. And they just they brought it to that exact moment of perfection, so that even as he's going and reliving things, and this is a testament to Tom Hiddleston's acting and his performance in this, he communicates exhaustion, but excitement, but familiarity all at the same time, so that we don't have to watch this scene. We don't even have to watch the same scene 3 times. We get that he's done this a number of times. The way that he's reciting people's words back to them, he's speaking so much faster because he's just trying to get to the end. He's joking around with it because he's a little stressed out. He's like, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for your job, Casey. It was hilarious and done so well until he gets to that moment of he's holding the microphone. He's like, okay, all of this, the last, at this point, centuries, years of effort on his part has brought him back to this moment where he has been so many times. And even the don't put it on the ground, because if you do, it'll roll off. They didn't have to show us that timeline. You know what I mean? We didn't have to experience that. We were able to experience it through Loki's controlled frustration. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes.
Brilliantly done. Brilliantly done. Tom Hiddleston nailed it. This man actually needs an Emmy for this. I'm sorry, he does.
He does.
The series as a whole, I've thought his performance was a little lackluster. I felt like we were kind of lacking the Loki in Loki throughout the season, but really everything that occurred was very much a build-up to this performance. Everything, the groundwork had to be laid. And in this episode, we got everything that I wanted out of this series. And I think, like I said, Hiddleston just brings it. We had a conversation on a previous episode about who's pulling the strings, who is telling the story, right? And there's this notion of okay, well, Loki, by gaining control of his time slipping, he now becomes the one he's going to write his own story. And my kind of pushback to that is yes, that's true. However, the implication is that actually somebody else is actively writing the story right now, which explains his time slipping, even the fact that he's got it. And where does this come from? Well, it must come from He Who Remains, who even after his death is still telling the story because he planned it all out. And I got to tell you, when Loki went into that room and he's fighting Sylvie and, he looks at Kang or He Who Remains, and he tells him, he's like, why don't you ever do anything? And He Who Remains just kind of grabs the remote and just pauses the movie for a quick second. And gives him the whole, who do you think paved this road? I got up out my couch. I was jumping up and down. I was like, I called it. I was pointing at the screen, and my wife is just mildly amused watching me do that. I was like, I called it. And I know that more than just me called it. I realize it's time travel. We probably all called it. But I was just so thrilled. And I'm sitting down and I'm looking at it and it's all going through. And then when they flip it and Loki's like, okay, how many times do you think we've had this conversation? And I was like, I called that too. I was so excited.
Yes,
oh, man.
Congratulations. One of our many, many theories.
Hey, we got several stabs in the dark, right? Okay, there are several. Most all the stabs in the dark that I turned into like little YouTube videos that have done mildly okay, like those were all correct. Now, not all of them were put into YouTube videos and not all of them were correct, but
no, you nailed it.
I think so. Like I've been saying throughout this entire series, by the way, that sorry, Miss Minutes over here is, for whatever reason, thought I just said her name for something. I've been calling this entire series, like, throughout, like, the way that they've layered in and sprinkled in and seasoned, like, the Norse mythology and references, but, like, subtly throughout. And my argument has been it's there if you choose to see it. And some people... I've gotten some pushback on that, saying like, no, look, that's not it. They're not gonna like do like big Norse like stuff. Like it's the TVA, it's sci-fi, it's Marvel. Like don't look too. You're looking too deeply into it. Am I? Am I?
You're not. They're definitely doing it.
I'm sorry, but when we have freaking Loki by the end of this sitting in what is. It's the world tree. It's how you pronounce it. Yggdrasil. Norse words are weird because they have letters that you don't say, but it's the freaking world tree. It's literally all of Norse, like the imagery that is used to define creation, not just creation, but literally the cosmos, everything, reality itself in Norse mythology is Yggdrasil, the world tree, and that is literally what we have. Like we are now living in the Loki verse. Loki steps from little G God to big G God. He creates Yggdrasil, literally the entire universe, and he is sitting here in the center. The timelines themselves, we've always had that language of branches being pruned. He's now taken the timeline and he has forged it and curated it and grown it into a tree, into actual branches that he's able to breathe life into. And it's so good. It's so good. It makes me wonder and really want to go back and like triple down on this thought process and look not just at characters like Ouroboros, who is a clear connection to Yomengander, but I'm very curious, how do these other characters potentially tie in as subtle nods to characters from Norse mythology, or even just like themes from Norse mythology? So anyway, I'm going to spend some time doing that on my own. It probably won't be in a podcast or a video, but I'm very interested in looking into that.
I'm very interested as well. I did wonder, like, is someone going to show up as Balder at some point in the finale?
Well, not in the finale, but yeah, I mean, eventually I would imagine we will see a Balder. I'm sorry. Makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy. Loki, very literary. We see him quoting T.S. Eliot, little guiding, I believe is the name of the poem. We die with the dying, see they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. And he who remains is like, okay.
Yep. I just get really sad thinking about Loki sitting there by himself for all time. Always. It's so sad.
Well, okay, but this is the journey that Loki has been on this entire time. Mm-hmm. What is a Loki? Do you think what makes us Lokis, do you think what makes a Loki is that they are destined to lose? In order for Loki to win, in order for like he who remains, so to speak, to be conquered, or more accurately, in order for the universe to survive and thrive, Loki must lose. And that is part of this calculus. They talk about the calculation, the algorithm, whatever it is. Like Loki starts to piece it together. He's got all the components in terms of what it's going to take to find a better way. A better way is him losing. He has to know what he wants and know what he must do, and they have to be counter to one another, because only then will he be successful. Will everything be able to, it's kind of interesting, right? Because there's not really a villain here when you think about it. There's just different ideas.
Yes.
He Who Remains represents the concept of taking chaos and turning it into order. The argument that he makes is, look, you kill me. If I don't exist, we destroy the loom. We let the timelines, everything else go crazy. We're going to have a multiversal war and literally everything's going to die. What I have done is I have taken the chaos and I have turned it into, I've replaced it with order. And by doing so, we eradicate a lot, but we save what we can. And that's not necessarily the mindset of a villain. You know what I mean? That is someone who is trying to preserve, to stop what he sees as a greater threat. Loki comes in and says, actually, what if, and now I say Loki, this is Loki after talking with Mobius and talking to Sylvie and like trying to process what the right thing is. What do I choose? Do I choose order of He Who Remains, or do I choose the chaos of Kang? Like, which one is it? And what we see in Loki is a discovery that what if this is not a binary choice? What if this is not one way or the other? But what if it is organized chaos? And what if I step into my role, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to, I know a lot of people are like leaning into the God of Stories. That's a relatively recent term, okay, in the comics. That's fine if you want to go into that. And I realize there's a lot of visuals that are connected with that, and that's great. But he's the God of chaos. So what if what we're seeing with this is he is creating organized chaos? He's creating that middle way, that living in the gray. But all of this, order, chaos, the chaos that Sylvie is saying that she prefers, even if it's chaos that leads us to our doom, the order that He Who Remains is saying, that says we're going to wipe out everything, but we're going to save what we can. Both of these, again, are not necessarily the mindsets of villains. They are villains, but they're not necessarily doing this with villainous intent. We eradicate that and we provide a third way. There's no, ironically, there are no villains here. We are all villains here. And by the very definition of that, there are no villains here. Does that make sense?
So, yes. So He Who Remains, he's like, yeah, so if we don't do this, no one's going to exist. So he's about self-preservation, because he's like, if we don't do this, I'm aware that I will no longer exist. So we're going to keep us alive. Loki is about like preservation, not just of himself, but also of his friends. He wants to see everyone have their story continue. If the TVA goes, maybe Loki will still exist, but he will never see his friends again. So his driving force is not just, oh, I need to make sure I have a timeline to continue on. It's us preservation.
Right. It's like, okay, through the sacred timeline, yes, you're fine, I'm fine. Well, but that's the reality is actually Loki wouldn't be fine, because Loki isn't part of he wouldn't exist either. He'd exist in the TVA.
He would exist in the TVA.
Right. So what you're saying is that it's the order versus chaos. And the order of He Who Remains, the TVA exists and is replaced and is working and thriving. And, that means Loki gets to keep his friends and the sacred timeline goes on, which means they've got something to preserve. Or we go with Sylvie's choice, which is everything burns. Like we're going to destroy everything, and then something is going to come from after we're all gone. Right?
What's going to come after they're all gone?
Kang. Lots of Kangs. All like the TVA is wiped out in the explosion. New timelines, spread out and, massively go, the chaos of the universe happens. And out of the chaos of the universe comes the Kangs, comes the multiversal war, and everything gets wiped out again. It keeps, and then it goes back once that occurs, then another He Who Remains comes into existence and the whole process starts all over again. Sylvie, in trying to break the wheel, is just another cog on that wheel in many respects.
I'm just wondering, how does the He Who Remained pop up out of nowhere after all the Kangs destroy everything?
Because He Who Remains is one of those Kangs that participates in the multiversal war.
I'm just gonna assume the Watcher is a part of this somehow,
I know.
some
I
way.
am a little disappointed we didn't get a Watcher. That would have been nice.
Yeah, I thought about it. I was like, Loki, he really is. He's alone now, and it made me think of Doctor Strange
Uh-huh.
and What If, and how it's like, well, he's alone, but he's alone because of selfish reasons, and Loki's alone because of selfless reasons. Maybe the Watcher will take pity and be like, "Hey, do you want a friend?"
Oh, that'd be nice. That
He
like
saw
actually, you know what?
everything
Maybe it's
that's
like
happened.
Loki, like the Watcher shows up and like maybe it's starting to commentate like, hey, I feel like things were really better before you started doing this. I really enjoyed, that second or the first Iron Man movie and the third Captain America. It's like and Loki's like, you want to hold this? I tell you what, why don't you hold this for like 5 minutes and give me just a quick break, okay? If you could just hold this for me.
Loki season 3.
Maybe that's it. Maybe Loki, when it's all said and done, sitting in that chair, watching everything transpire and doing his dangdest to hold everything together is Kevin Feige. That's really who he is.
Kevin. Wow.
I did think about the fact that, first of all, the concept here is that really Loki season 1 and season 2, that is the kickoff to phase 4. Even though we're kind of at the end of phase 4, like this storyline is the beginning of what is essentially the multiversal saga, right? And with the various storylines that we have going on and kind of like the rotting of the timelines, in my mind now, just whenever we get bad movies, that was that part of the timeline that was a little rotten before Loki was able to breathe life into it. In fact, Loki season 2 is breathing life into a lot of phase 4 and maybe into the franchise as a whole. And maybe we've seen a lot of really rotten timelines here and there. I have not yet seen the Marvels. I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight, but based on the reviews, that might be one of those timelines that needs a little extra oomph, like.
Oh, no. So the 616, the Earth adjacent.
Yes. 616.
That
Jason realm adjacent. Yeah.
is that Ant-Man?
Yeah. So
Quantumania?
that's Quantumania. So 616 has often been, so Earth 616 was always kind of in the comic books what was presumed or kind of assumed and accepted to be the main Marvel universe. Like if there's a multiverse, the one that we've been following through all of this time or that you're continually following is the 616. And so the MCU kind of took this same principle, and the idea is that basically whatever we're reading or seeing as kind of our central, from an audience consuming a story or hearing a story, we're hearing the story of the 616 unless it is specifically called out to be something different, like the Ultimates universe or a lot of what we've seen in like the Spider-Verse and that sort of thing. So all that to say, in fact, in Spider-Verse, what is it? Miles is from like Earth 42 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
That makes sense.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but they specifically call it out. And the mindset there is like, this is not the 616. So we're dealing with something different, with kind of an otherworldliness to whatever we're viewing. Earth 616, I think first popped up in the MCU in Thor: The Dark World of all places, when Skarsgård is like kind of lost his mind or like in his classroom or something like that, and he's drawing up on the whiteboard, and he's drawn this big like Yggdrasil world tree with 616 in the middle. Actually, now that I think about it, it's like,
what?
Yeah, hang on, we might need to go back and rewatch Thor: The Dark World. There might be a lot going on there that needs another look. But anyway, all that to say, yes. So the 616 has been the sacred timeline. 616, for all intents and purposes, is the sacred timeline. But he didn't say Earth 616. He said Earth 616 adjacent realm. In my mind, that means the quantum realm that is adjacent to 616, which is, essentially what we got.
Nice.
Since the quantum realm exists outside of time, that's how the Avengers were able to traverse through through time in order to get to different parts of the timeline. And, it's funny because a lot of us thought that the TVA existed in the quantum realm, and that we were dealing with, the Kang that we see in Ant-Man was going to be somehow connected. And that's not it at all. They brushed that to the side real quick, retconned any kind of idea of like, okay, no, don't worry about it. That's not Kang. I know we'd made a big deal in the trailer and we made a big deal in the movie, and then he got washed real fast. That wasn't the real Kang. Trust us, the real Kang's coming. The real Kang's coming. Just hang on. He's gonna come. He's gonna be fine.
I love how they're like, oh yeah, but they took care of it. It's no big deal.
It's no big deal. Yeah. Don't even worry about it. To some extent, maybe that's the mindset behind the new Loki verse. Is it's whereas before it was all connected, now it's all been scattered. And so maybe it's an invitation of like, hey, just watch what movies you want. Like there was a time, but now everybody who had time back then to watch all that doesn't have time anymore because we were all, grown up and we've got grown up responsibilities and everything. So, hey, just when you can, check it out. Don't worry about it. It's all connected. Loki is why it's all connected. So just know it's connected to Loki and have a good time.
Loki. He saved us all.
He did. He saved the multiverse. Let's see. Let me scan through my notes here real quick to see what else we got. I tell you what, Mobius really drops some hard truths on Loki. I thought were really poignant. He says, there's no comfort just choosing your burden. And I the journey that Loki goes on talking to Mobius and then also talking to Sylvie, where he goes to Sylvie and he says, look, I've seen everything. Like, this is all happening. The only way I can stop this is I have to kill you. And when she's like looking at him, I was like, they are not about to make Sylvie say it's okay or something like that. It's in X-Men, X-Men Last Stand, I want to say, the third X-Men movie, at the end of it where Jean Grey is losing her mind and she's destroying everything and Wolverine has to kill her and she looks at him and kind of gives him permission to kill her. That's been widely criticized for a lot of reasons in that whole sequence. And I remember as he's going up to her and telling her this situation where he feels like he's caught in this impossible place where he has to kill her in order to save what can be saved, I'm like, they're not about to pull a Jean Grey and Wolverine here. And thankfully that is not what they did, because Sylvie's like, well, if you think I'm going to give you permission to kill me,
not happening. I legitimately thought that he was going to kill her, though. I thought he was going to go back and kill her.
Yeah. I was waiting for it the entire time. In fact, I was actually kind of like, do it, Loki. Just do it. Just do it.
Do it now. It's going to be harder later. Because, she's about to disappear in front of your eyes anyways. Just do it now. Ugh.
It was rough. But yeah, yeah.
And when he was talking to Mobius, I think his inspiration for, when he tells him that Renslayer pruned that little boy, as in, that's the only option in the situation. Loki looked at that and was like, that's Renslayer. She is a bad person. She acted the way she, felt was the right thing to do, but, that's evil. She, pruned a kid. I'm not going to be that way. I have to think of a third way. That seemed to me like the inspiration for him.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel as though it's the moral quandary of Hitler and a baby, right? If you go back in time, what would you do with Hitler if you had him as a baby? And Mobius kind of having that moral center of what, it's not up to me. It's been calculated. If I let my emotions get in the way of it, it keeps me from doing what I need to do to preserve what I need to preserve. And again, I don't necessarily see that per se as intentionally evil or malicious. You know what I mean? It is a soldier following orders, and it might be and I'm not saying that's a good excuse for anything. I'm just kind of saying that well, you understand that, or at least they understand in their belief system that there is literally no other way. And if we don't take care of if we don't prune, because they don't kill, they prune, and he says this, but if we don't prune this one kid, then all these 5,000 people are going to die. And so it's been referenced multiple times, but it's the train cart from The Good Place, right? Do you take out one person to save 5, or do you take out 5 to save 1? Like which is it? There's no right choice. You know what I mean? There's no righteous move here from that situation.
I feel like when he learns it's Renslayer though is when he's like, oh, I got to think of a third way. Like,
well, there is something to be said of like it complicates matters. It's like, well, it's Renslayer though, so to me it's Sylvie. It's a conversation with Sylvie when she said, like, he's talking about, destroying everything. She's like, I have lived through apocalypses. I've lived, like, I've seen enough to know that sometimes you just have to destroy everything. And the problem that Sylvie the problem that Sylvie represents is not recognizing the why. Why is it okay to let everything just burn? Why do we just destroy everything? And of course, the answer is what Loki gives. It's the if. If there's a chance that something can grow better in its place. Because if we're just lashing out and spewing, fire and destruction everywhere for the sake of our, like, we're bitter and angry that things aren't going the way that we want it to, then we're not really doing anything. We're not building anything. It's just destruction. Which there's feelings to that, right? There's a morally righteous anger that kind of fuels that massive amounts of like desire to see everything burn, right? Like, it's like, this is all broken. It's all wrong. It's all oppressive. There's injustice. There's all this stuff. Just, it all needs to be burned down. It's like, okay, and that's the thing. That's where Loki steps in. And that's like the moment where it all clicks for him. The if there's a chance that we can make something better in its place. And that's the piece that Sylvie lacks, right? And so it's, I don't know. I think it was the combination of both of those. I mean, and with He Who Remains, like those 3 conversations is really what formulates ultimately what Loki realizes he needs to do.
And they've been leading up to it for the entire season. They've been having all these conversations about like which way is right and can we build something new and better to keep these timelines. And Loki realizes this is the only way. Yeah. It has to be me.
And it was a gamble, because even with destroying, and it's a gamble from a lot of different ways, because even with destroying the time loon, what do we see? The timelines start to die. Mm-hmm. And so it's very possible that the end of all existence is right. Like, he's risking all of existence to save it, and is able to do so in a very beautiful way. We get some beautiful rebirth. It is Ragnarok. It is death and rebirth, with Loki at the center. That is Ragnarok. And that is how this series, in all of its crazy high sci-fi, quantum, yada, 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 and all of this like fantasy, cosmic, mythos come together in this very weird, very strange series that has been Loki season 1 and Loki season 2. I'm hoping that we get a season 3. We're certainly set up for it with kind of a tease of Renslayer, although I have a feeling that's going to play more into Kang Dynasty. Miss Minutes, is she going to kill us all? That's kind of the big question mark. Why would we even bring her back instead of just making something new? I don't know, because we're the TVA. This is what
lots of different, you could have that, thing that is in your house that you talk to, that ask questions to.
I'm just going to start calling that thing Miss Minutes from now on, and that whenever I'm referring to it, because that way she's not listening, although she's probably listening. But yeah, so that's the big question: is Miss Minutes, is she going to come back as a villain? There's also the question of the judges, the Brad of it all. Like, what was the deal with the judge and Brad? Like, that was that just a pad time?
Weird. I don't know if they just like had a whole story that they just cut out and we're like, you know what I want? I don't want a season 3. I want a prequel. I want to know all these people, their origins. I want to know, because we had all these questions about the TVA's founding that we didn't get answered. And I'm like,
we did though. We got just enough to piece things together, as opposed to giving us the full story. Because we saw in this series, we saw a potential origin for the TVA in Loki creating the TVA, right? But then we also saw another potential origin for the TVA, which is He Who Remains creating the TVA with Renslayer. So we're
or is
getting
it Victor Timely and Obi that created the TVA?
Then that's a theory as well. My point is this, though: like we've been given just enough information to draw our own conclusions.
And I don't want that. I want the answers.
This is the thing. This is why I love this series so much. It's not just sci-fi, and it's not just cosmic fantasy. It's also religion. Like it's all of these things baked into one. And so the way in which they lace out all of this little information here and there, it's kind of just enough to draw your own conclusions with everything that's kind of brought together. And so much of this is symbolic. And so much of what you think is hard fact ends up being kind of narrative poetry, and vice versa. And it's all kind of mixed into one. So is the case with the origin story for the TVA. They don't know, like even today, the variants don't still know the true origins of the TVA. They have enough information to kind of, as much as we do, which is like, okay, there was a war and this happened, this guy's been doing the thing, he's pulling the strings, and you know, our gods were just robots and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I don't think we need to know. I actually like the fact that it's all speculation, and it can continue to be speculation, and to some extent a choose your own adventure of what you where you think, how you think everything came together. But they gave you enough. I feel like they gave you enough that for those that choose to see it and who are open to it, then you can kind of see how it all came together.
Kind of.
The pieces are there. I think it's great. I think it's beautiful.
I want to know more about Brad. We're gonna see Brad again, right?
So this is my thing. I don't want to know more about Brad. I thought Brad was a waste of a character. I did not get the purpose of him. And by the end of it, I was like, was he just there? Because we got a lot of different characters that were introduced to kind of throw us off, right? Like, I feel like maybe the judge that kind of went crazy and blew up a bunch of stuff, like, I feel like she was meant to be a bait and switch on kind of a Sylvie variant, which a lot of us, you know, took that bait. I feel like the McDonald's worker was supposed to be there to be a bait and switch on a Mobius variant, right? So Brad probably existed in some form or fashion to give us some sort of bait and switch. Not exactly sure what the intention was, but there was, you know, maybe it was just to draw our attention away from something else. I'm really looking forward to doing a full binge of this series now, like back to back to back. I have a feeling we're going to find things we completely missed the first time around.
Yeah, I did actually binge season 2 yesterday.
The whole season?
Yeah, I started at 4:00 and I just watched it all.
Whoa!
I was trying to pick up on breadcrumbs. The only thing I got was in the credits. There were spoilers if you knew what happened later. But,
right.
You know, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. You got to pay attention.
And I did pick up on a Swift watch, which we can discuss later.
Oh my gosh. You know, well, okay. Is it that time? Is it that time?
It can be that time.
Okay.
I don't know. What does Miss Minute say?
Wait, what?
What does Miss Minute say? You know, she's the time. Is it that time?
Oh, is it that time? Yes. Okay. All right. I can't believe we're going to do this, but I feel like we have to. Taylor watch.
Yeah, so in my rewatch of season 2 yesterday, I watched the entire thing. I found another Taylor Swift reference. You know, they're always running down hallways. It's just constantly happening. And in at least one of the scenes, they're running down a hall. And the number on the wall is 22. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22 is what Taylor Swift did right in her album Red.
Wait, what did she write?
22, the song 22. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. You don't know the song?
Hang on. So our Taylor watch, our grand finale Taylor watch of what has been the most celebrated epic segment of a podcast ever, Taylor watch, included in Loki TV talk, nothing to do with Taylor Swift. And so the connection that you're making is that they were running down a hall, and on the hall was the number 22, and she had a song or a lyric?
A song. The song is called 22.
A song. It was called 22.
It's a big song.
Called 22. It's a number.
Yes, it's 2-2.
Yeah.
They
You know what? I
referenced it.
feel like, see, what you just did is you're like Loki right now. You grabbed these like, little Taylor connections and you're sitting in your chair and you're you're like straining to pull them together. That's maybe Taylor Watch was really a metaphor for how this series would end.
I mean, Taylor Swift is like, she's really big into Easter eggs, so she makes her super fans like really diligent and finding the craziest connections.
She makes you all conspiracy theorists.
Honestly, though, and yeah, so I'm just applying that to this series.
Terrible. Terrible. All right, well there you go. That's our final Taylor Watch. Hope you enjoyed that. 22.
It's a big song.
It's a big stretch, is what it is. But appropriate, all things considered. Listen, that is going to do it for us for this series. We've had a lot of fun talking about it. It's been a good excuse for us to get together on a weekly basis and hang out for a bit. We want to encourage you, if you've not done so already, follow @CrewOfLoki on Instagram. We will be posting out some videos from our antics from previous Mardi Gras, and we're getting excited for the upcoming Mardi Gras as well. We may change this podcast to a monthly podcast and drop kind of like some updates if you want to kind of go behind the scenes for what's going on with the crew of Loki. Support us. Come down to New Orleans for Chewbacca's, and you might even see us marching along. Actually, if you come down for Chewbacca's, you'll definitely see us marching along because we'll be there marching along. We may even have the God King Loki himself, Andrew.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm just saying, if you see us marching, make sure you shout us out, Loki TV Talk. We'll make sure you get some really good swag.
Lorraine, yes. Anybody that we hear yell Loki TV Talk during Chewbacca's, when you see us, we will make. We've got some good stuff this year too.
You'll get it all.
We will give you everything. We'll give you all the bookmarks. We'll give you depending on where you are in the parade. If you're at the end of the parade, we can't guarantee it. But if you're midway early on, all our best stuff, you're gonna get it. It's gonna be fun. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you'd like to send us your thoughts and otherwise, be sure to just email the show at Loki TV Talk. We'll probably maintain control of the TV Talk FM Twitter handle for a little while longer to also showcase some things, promote some things. If you're enjoying the Loki Theory videos, those have all been on the TV Talk YouTube channel. You can check that out in the link for this episode right here. Be sure to subscribe for this and other good TV Talk goodness. There is actually going to be the new Netflix Avatar series. They just promoted a trailer for that. I'm going to be watching that one and really looking forward to talking about that. That will be on the main TV Talk feed. So if you're not subscribed to the TV Talk podcast, do that. I may even be doing that one with my eldest daughter, making her podcasting debut. So that'll be exciting. If so.
Fun.
We tried to do the animated series because she got big into the animated series back in the day. And then she got me into it, and we watched it together. And she was like, she's a super fan of it. What Star Wars was for me, what Harry Potter was for you, Avatar was for her until she started reading Harry Potter, and now Harry Potter has taken that place. But she's absolutely like a mega fan. She knows all of the sequel series. She reads the books. She knows deep lore behind that kind of stuff. And if she's ready to be on mic, then which we'll find out soon enough. We might be covering that one together. So yeah, check that out. tvtalk.fm is the place to do it. Lorraine, any final thoughts? Anything else you want to put out there?
I was just really waiting for Sylvie to become Miss Minutes as a person, and only time will tell if that happens.
What was that? Your girlfriend. That was, what a great show. So many plot lines that went absolutely nowhere, and yet at the end, it's a triumph. How? How did they? Brilliance
Sometimes
is
really
what it is.
All is about the ending.
You stick the landing, and and you're done. You done did the thing.
Yep.
Cheers.
They probably
to
wrote
you,
the ending, and then they were like, "All right, so let's have fun for 5 episodes." And they had fun.
They did, and it was great. Well, there you go. That's it. Be sure to, again, check us out. The tvtalk.fm is a place to do it. That's going to do it for us for this season. But until next time.
For all time, always.
I think we'll get a season 3.
I hope so.
Recording stop.